Now, the foundations of Parnell Park have just barely settled back to normal after the events of the weekend that saw Dublin prevail over Galway in the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship, winning by 319 to 24 points. Huge ramifications for the rest of the championship going forward, but not least of which Dublin progressing to the All-Ireland Series. I'm delighted to say that Dublin hurling manager Mattie Kenny joins us on the line this evening. Good evening, Mattie.
Good evening, Richie. How are you?
Not too bad. I'd imagine you're pretty good and have had a pretty good few days given the events of the weekend. Take us back to Saturday night and what it was like, I suppose, as Parnell Park is working itself into a fervour and you're on the brink of that win over Galway and eventually erupting into the win itself. I don't think nights like that from a hurling perspective have been seen in Parnell Park for quite some time.
Yeah, look, it was a fantastic game of hurling. Both teams level on 18 different occasions, so this shows you the closeness of the game. And coming down the stretch, the huge support there for Galway and huge support for Dublin, and both winning their sides on, to get the few vital scores needed to get either team across the line. And fortunately for Dublin, we got a goal, very close to the finish, and which was the key score in that game. As I say, up to that level, the teams are level 18 different occasions.
This performance from Dublin, and I guess progressing out of Leinster, to some people may have come as a surprise, but it's easily forgotten, I guess, what a decent league campaign the Dubs had in the spring. I mean, you got to a league semi-final and ran Limerick, the reigning All-Ireland champions, pretty close, getting to within 3 points of them back then. It's been a fairly decent start for yourself, Mattie, in charge of Dublin. Take us back to when you initially decided to take the job. Was there any one thing particularly in mind that you wanted to bring to that Dublin panel?
Well, I've been working in Dublin hurling for a vast number of years, as you know, the club scene with Coola, and I've seen the quality of players that's in Dublin, and having been in Coola for a number of years, when this opportunity arose, I felt it was something that, when the opportunity did come after Pat not being able to continue, that we said we put the management team together and continue on the good work. So I suppose, what do we hope to bring? I suppose a continuation of what was started last year, and the foundations put in place, and for us to continue on that, and I suppose put our own little brand on it, and but without changing too much, really.
When you were in charge of Coola, like obviously enough, you're concentrating on the day-to-day work that needs to be done at the club. Is there a sense of how Coola fitted into the overall Dublin scene? You would have obviously had an eye on other games and other sides and other clubs to see how they were progressing. In the back of your head over the past number of years, was it a little kernel of, I don't want to say doubt, but it was a kernel of something in your head that thought maybe Dublin should be doing better and performing better than where they had been, which isn't a criticism of people who may have preceded you in the job, but there was just a nagging sense that there's a little bit more in this Dublin side than we've possibly seen post that Leinster final win of 2013.
Yeah, but look, sports can be funny at times. When you're in the All-Ireland Series or the Leinster Series, results can go one way or the other. You've seen that Leinster Championship there, 4 teams finishing on 5 points. You see last year in the Munster Championship, like a lot of the times that you pocket the ball between teams, and on any given year, you might be the wrong side of that, and sometimes when you get the wins, everybody thinks everything is brilliant, and when you lose, I think everything is not going well. But it's not as black and white as that. So even if you take back that game on Saturday night, like it came down to that goal at that critical time, and if we hadn't got that, today we could be out of the championship and be saying, Dublin aren't progressing. So it's a fine line, and I suppose my philosophy and the philosophy of people working, if you keep your head down, keep working, and keep trying to do the right thing, this over a period of time, you'd hope that your turn will come around.
Outside of Coola, how, in your view, does the club standard compare to other counties, I suppose, quote unquote, traditional strongholds in hurling?
Yeah, look, there's some counties, there's some really tough championships, and standards very, very high. Galway's championship traditionally has been very, very high. Kenny down in Wexford, but even the leashes in the Westmeath, you look at the club teams that come out there. We've played them in Leinster club championships over the last few years. Standard is pretty high, and but your question in relation to Dublin, there's 6 or 7 teams in Dublin that would hold their own as any team in Ireland, but then the other counties could say the same. Like you look at, say, the Limerick Club Championship, like St Patrick's Well, and a lot of the clubs down there, they're really, really strong. Like the Waterford Championship, Ballygunner, fine side there the last few years. Just haven't made the breakthrough at all Ireland level yet, but they're very, very close. So that club competition is a really, really good competition, and the standard is very high across a lot of counties.
You've been able to call upon some really experienced heads over the course of the last while, no more so, I guess, than Conal Keaney, who at 36 years of age seems to be playing with somebody who's about 15 years his junior at this stage. Speak to us about Conal and what he's brought, not only, I suppose, to the pitch from a Dublin point of view this season, but also to the dressing room for you. Yeah,
look at it. It's our aim as any manager, to get a good, strong, healthy squad together, and Conal Keaney, has been a stalwart and a servant for a good many years, with Dublin. And when I was appointed last year, he was at Bowden, and I knew from Conal, from the Bowden guys, he was carrying a serious shoulder injury they picked up against Kilkenny last year in the Leinster Championship. But he didn't get his operation until his commitment with Bowden finished on Leinster final day in early December, and so once that was over, he had to get that shoulder sorted out, get it operated, and that was going to take him out for a good 4 or 5 months. And so it's a testament to Conal the way he can came through that operation and got himself back into shape. Testament to all the medical team that works around him and all the physios, the great work they did to get him back, get him right again, and no doubt he put in a huge performance there on Saturday night.
Does that shoulder and that injury still have to be minded somewhat? Like, I know he's back operating at full fitness, but in terms of, especially when you get into your mid-30s, and especially with something like the shoulder, which is basically intrinsic to the game of hurling, does that still have to be managed to a degree?
Well, I didn't see any evidence of minding it on Saturday night.
I know, but just in terms of workload and all that kind of stuff.
I know. Look at Conal. As you say, he's in mid-30s now. So program from Conal may not be the same as that for a 25-year-old. And that's the testament of our medical staff and of our conditioning staff. That's to get him into that shape and get him. Or to help our system, in putting a performance like that on Saturday night. So, obviously, as you get, into the second half of your career, you can't be doing the same thing as a 20-year-old. And look at that's the management and the process around making sure he was right for the championship games. And in fairness to our medical and conditioning staff, they got him, and Conal himself, they got him in really good shape for the Leinster Championship. And
it speaks volumes of his mentality as well, because they say no matter what the sport is, I guess as soon as you get to that mid-30s point, you may have lost a yard of pace, but some players are lucky enough to gain 3 or 4, maybe even more in their head, and Conal seems to definitely be one of those. I mean, he's a very intelligent hurler by the looks of things.
Yeah, and a great leader, as a good leader in the dressing room, a good leader on the pitch, and experience. It is worth a lot, and he brought all his experience to bear there on Saturday night.
Has that kind of experience trickled down to other elements of the squads, like Eamon Dillon, who of course scored on Saturday night? A slightly slower start to the championship, some might say, that there's been for him, but he's gradually, as we've worked through the games, he's very much played himself into being a key member of that side as well. It seems like it's a pattern thing that a lot of the Dublin players seem to be very much playing themselves into this year.
Yeah, Eamon or Collier, as you better know, he had a really, really good league for Dublin, and having a really good Leinster Championship, and he is one of Dublin's top forwards, and I suppose that comes at a price. There's obviously any opposition you're playing. They all kind of look at where the strengths and weaknesses are in each team, and when you be looking at matchups and players, that you need to close down and not give too much space. I'm sure that Trollier will be one of the guys that the opposition coaches will be looking at, and when you are playing well, that's one of the drawbacks to it. Like that people will be trying to close down your space the next day. But as you say, as this championship was going on, his performance has been key for Dublin, and he's in rich way of form at the moment, which we're delighted.
Mattie, I have to ask, where does the nickname Trollier come from? Do you know?
I have no idea. So, as long as I've known him, and as long as from afar, he was always known as Trollier. So I have no idea the history of that one. We'll have to get him on and ask him down yourself, Richie.
That's absolutely gone on the long list, and I don't think I could live with the inquisitive nature of why somebody called Eamon Dillon is called Trollier. But I guess his performance this past weekend and this past Saturday speaks volumes of how the forwards have stepped up to the plate, because one of the criticisms, I think, the opening 2 rounds of the league aside, it was that the Dublin forwards maybe weren't contributing as much as they possibly could in terms of scores. That has definitely ramped up over the course of the last 3 and 4 weeks.
Yeah, look, the finishing table was published there on Sunday. And obviously, the 4 sides, Galway, Dublin, Kilkenny, and Wexford, they all finished with 5 points. But if you look at what they conceded, and what they scored, I think they all conceded. All 4 teams conceded, 75, 76, 77 points, and they all scored 85, 86, 87 points. So the level of scoring and the level of defending was very, very equal between all teams. And the only from points it was actually nearly exactly the same. So the only difference was the goals conceded and the goals scored. But if you look at the average scoring for all 4 sides was very, very similar.
Has there been specific work, Mattie, put into the mental side of things with Dublin this year? It was something I watched your interview with Dubs TV after the game on Saturday, that you pointed out that you needed full concentration, and this is something that I guess has been the beating of many sides from a football point of view with Jim Gavin's side, is that mentally there's absolutely no one to match the Dublin footballers at the moment. The idea of being mentally strong and being mentally switched on for a full 70 minutes is obviously key to how you want to set this Dublin side up.
Yeah, but no matter which manager you have on tonight, across whatever code, we're all trying to achieve the same thing, and it's something that was that the Dublin hurlers was, I suppose, the forefront of their mind at the start of the year, that coming down the stretch the way Leeds, and they were caught and last games narrowly, so it was an obvious one from them. Saying that a lot of areas do we need to improve on, and they were saying okay, we got to finish games better, but as I say, no matter what team you're at or what code, everyone is trying to achieve the same thing. There's games, and right, especially in the hurling championship last year, most of the games were finished or were won in the last 5, 6, 7 minutes, and so if you wanted to make any progress this year, it was an area that every team had to look at, and in hurling, carrying a 2, 3, 4 point lead, going into injury team may not be sufficient, to get you the result, that you got to stay fighting to the death. And, I referenced that goal that Chris Crummy got the last day. And I said in that interview afterwards, that Galway were playing so well, and they're getting some fantastic scores. If Galway had gone down and got the next score, there was a strong possibility that they'd have pulled back that lead again. And so, Fergal Whiteley's point after the goal, giving us that 4 point cushion, them 2 scores, they won the 2 scores that ultimately got us across the line.
Mattie, you have another couple of weeks now before that preliminary quarter-final against, I think it's going to be Laois or Westmeath. Beyond that, I don't think there's going to be many surprises as regards what Dublin might face, because if it's a Limerick or if it's a Tipperary, you've already played them in the league. They will have had many outings themselves by that point in this year's championship, so you can know what to expect. I'm not asking you to look beyond what may come from either Laois or Westmeath, but there is a sense that Dublin can go on and stand toe-to-toe with the quote-unquote bigger sides in the rest of this year's All-Ireland Championship.
Yeah, look, it's our policy always just to take one game at a time, and we went back training last night. You have to regroup and look forward to the next challenge, and the next challenge is playing the winners of Laois and Westmeath, and we haven't played Westmeath this year, but we've played Laois twice, and they're very, very competitive, and they've gone really, really well in that Joe McDonough. They're building really, really well. In the last number of months, and they're going to be a formidable challenge, whether it's themselves or Westmeath it comes out. Westmeath have been going really, really well. So whichever team wins the Joe McDonough, that's what we've got to get ready for, and that's the challenge we face. And we'll go back in training again this weekend. It'll be our sole focus will be getting ready to play the winners of that Joe McDonough.
Mattie, it was a 3-year term you signed, wasn't it?
Yeah, look, I don't remember signing anything actually.
Well, not signing, but agreeing to. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, look, that like in this game, generally when you're appointed by these county boards, it's usually for a 2 or 3 year period. Like, but everything we do, we take one game at a time and one season at a time. We met earlier in the year. We set targets for ourselves for the league, which we didn't achieve. We set targets for ourselves in the Leinster Championship, which we didn't achieve. So we now got to set targets for All Ireland, and if we're making progress and the team is performing well, the whole dynamic of the group is good, and everyone is pushing forward. So that's our focus at the moment. We're not looking to next year or the year after. We got the job. We said, look, we're going to try to achieve as much as we can this year. And as I said, the targets we set for the league and the Leinster Championship, unfortunately we didn't achieve them. But thankfully we've qualified for the knockout stages of the All Ireland series. So we're going in there. We're going to take one game at a time, and we'll see how far it takes us. Nights
like Saturday night, though, got to be addictive.
Nights like Saturday night, I think the whole atmosphere there, the whole occasion, the standard of the game, the closeness of the game, and the crowd from both the Galway supporters and Dublin supporters are fully engaged, and it was really, really, championship hurling played at its highest level, and it was, I wouldn't say it was enjoyable to be involved, because there isn't much enjoyment when it's so competitive. But that's what you play for. That's what you train for. That's what all the hard hours and hard work is for to be able to compete at that level. And when a team of our stature and ability to come to Parnell Park, it just added to the occasion. And in fairness to both teams, they served up a great game of hurling.
Mattie, we've taken up enough of your evening. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Richie, thank you very much for having me on, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Mattie. Best of luck with the rest of the championship.